lot of those feminists, particularly with a lot of black women, there's this weird animus towards men, pathological beyond
I'm
conception.
not gonna let a man get over on me. And really, it's not the black girl talking; it's her mother talking through her.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Maxwell podcast. Today, I have my great friend on here. He was recently on here a couple months ago. He's back on again for another great discussion. Jaquan Davis. Jaquan, how you doing, man?
Doing well, bro. I'm doing well. I won't
Have you
complain.
have you been?
I've been well. Life's going pretty good. Business is going pretty well. Branding is going pretty well. Continuing to expand. Continue to get the exposure that I need and continue to make, good connections. That's what it's all about.
That's
That's great.
great for the people who haven't seen episode 10. Episode 10, that was 4 episodes ago. Wow. For those of you who haven't seen the episode, Jaquan Davis is a social media influencer, a behavioral scientist, certified relationship coach, and author. He's the author of the book, pulling up right now, The Q Pill, An Overdose of Reality, The Remedy for a Cold World. You guys can get that on Amazon right now. I'm going to put the link in the description for that. And today, I'm hoping that we're going to have a really productive conversation and tackle a lot of stuff. So, Jaquan, I think the first question I want to ask you is, you're one of the, and I've been seeing it a lot on TikTok and Instagram lately, because I think your Twitter was disabled or something. You had to start it like over again.
Yeah, I'm on my fourth Twitter. I'm on my
Yeah,
fourth Twitter account currently. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think I asked you this question first, our last discussion, so I'm gonna ask you it again. Mostly on TikTok and Instagram, your comment section, like you make videos about the biological differences between men and women. You break down the, I guess you could say, the psyches of women a lot. That's your my primary focus, and just the utter just vitriol you get from women in the comment section, and sometimes men too. What is your do you feel as if you, I always want to ask you this, do you feel as if you properly do justice of the female like psyche? Do you think that you are doing a do you think you're doing a good job with that? Because I'm curious. I want to know your take on why do you think as if you're getting. I mean, nowadays you can get hate for saying anything. So this question is kind of baseless. But why do you think you get so much flack for what you're saying? And it's apparently grounded in science, grounded in actual data. Why do you think you get so much hate?
Well, because for one, in this politically correct era, it's going against the grain of state. The differences, the biological differences, especially between men and women, as you know, propaganda, they're propagating this idea that men and women are equal, we're the same, and we're interchangeable. So when you highlight things that contradict that narrative, you see people start to get frustrated because it's not what they're used to hearing, it's not what they've been exposed to in recent days, especially when it comes to what the media continues to try to perpetuate about men and women. So automatically there with women having a history of being the oppressed sex, second class citizens, especially in the old world, and then over here in the new world, we're pushing this egalitarian narrative. Women can go out and be their own individual being without having to rely on a man and having to depend on a man financially and a man's resources. It takes away from, I guess, the independence that women would like to believe that they actually have when it comes to being first class citizens now and having their own identity and being able to do what they want to do, go about life however they want to go about life, and the freedom and free will to make the choices that they think best serve them. So when I talk about men and women, I talk about how interdependent we actually are, which totally contradicts the independent woman narrative. And that seems to
Hmm.
frustrate a lot of women because a lot of women take pride in, I will say, the illusory truth that they are indeed independent and can survive without men.
So when you say independent, what do you mean by that? When you say that women say that they feel as if they're independent, what does that mean?
It means that they basically feel that everything that they do, they somehow created. They're the innovators. They're their own beings. They have their own free will. They have their own free thought. And it doesn't stem from the influence of man or the quote unquote patriarchy, as they say, or it isn't rooted in the beliefs of men. You'll see a lot of women, especially feminists, you'll see them make claims such as do away with the patriarchy or the patriarchy is dangerous or concepts that they've invented now, such as toxic masculinity, things to just try to give women a sense of being themselves without being reliant upon a man. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's essentially what it comes down to.
Hmm.
Hmm. It's interesting. I ask you that because I hear that a lot, and I don't necessarily understand. I understand it's an outgrowth of the feminist movement, but I don't really see a reason why these two viewpoints of the world can't be held simultaneously. I don't understand why women can't feel as if they have an independent, I guess, autonomy within the world, like, as if they I mean they obviously were not equal. Well, maybe that is the axiom of their belief. So I guess you really can't say that. I guess what I'm really trying to say is why can't the I guess the more radical feminist crowd, why can't they hold these two beliefs that women are independent and they're just as equal as a man? Why can't they hold that and also have a traditional value as, we kind of both need each other? Like why can't why do you think those two viewpoints can't be held simultaneously? Because I don't really see how they conflict. Because on one hand, the more traditional viewpoint of the world pre-feminism was, when men, well, actually, men were somewhat predominant. They were the protectors, the gatherers, the fighters out on the front lines. But that's not to say that women didn't play a significant role, taking primary care of the family, being the nurturer. I don't understand why that worldview contradicts this more modern worldview that, women are independent and they don't necessarily need like a financial support or whatever that viewpoint is. I don't see how those two things are contradictory, because those, for me, you can hold both of those views. For me, you can hold both of those views. So what do you think is a clash? Like what is the conflict?
It stems from their perception of what it means to be interdependent. It's condescending to them.
I
I
guess
guess I'll ask you a clear question. What do you think they lose once they accept that men and women are interdependent? What do you think that they lose when if they have to accept that premise? Because I don't see what you lose if you accept that. That's not to say that you have to bow down to it. It's not, we're not like in a third world country where you literally have to, like in Thailand, you have to bow to like someone walking down the street. That's not to say that men are like feeble characters without women. That's not to say that. What do you think they lose when you accept if you accept the premise that we're interdependent, which we are?
I think it comes down to their understanding of what it means to be interdependent. I think they confuse interdependent with codependent, and
yeah.
codependent is different from independent. So when you say interdependent to a woman, most of them aren't familiar with that term. They don't know that that means men and women need each other. When we say codependent, or their perception of interdependent is codependent, they believe that means that they absolutely have to depend on a man. Like there's absolutely nothing that they can accomplish without a man's presence. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
to a degree, that is true because, of course, men invented pretty much everything that women use, even the things that are beneficial to women and that allow women to be as free as they are now, such as the invention of birth control. That in itself speaks to the fact that yes, they still need men, but as I said, to them it's condescending. They don't understand the terminology and what it means to actually be interdependent. They confuse interdependent with codependent, and to them it's condescending. It's a negative thing. it's a bad thing because to them they conflate that with the oppressive nature that they remember to be what it actually meant to be to need a man back in the old world or back in the older days as
Yeah.
opposed to modern times. I believe that's where it stems from.
What do you think? I guess this would be kind of hard to ask you, but what do you think more traditional women view the more modern feminist way of conceptualizing interdependency? Why do you think? What is it that the more traditional women, do you think that they are not hip to the times? Do you think that they are being brainwashed? Do you think that like more traditional women that want to, and once they get married, they want to stay home, they want to take care of the kid, they don't put their career as their primary like driving of their existence? What do you think? What do those women get that the more modern feminists don't understand? What do you think? What do you think they're not understanding?
Well, you mean like what are the traditional women not understanding that feminists understand, or what do feminists not understand that
Yeah.
Yeah.
traditional?
What do you think? Because there was a poll, I forget where it was. I think the most unhappy people are liberal women. I
And that
think that
was
was
a
a
photo.
poll.
I'm
I'm
not
not
sure
sure
where I
where I
found
found
that
it
at.
at.
I've
And
never
when I
seen it.
seen that, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because every time you see these like these protests and these riots, it's the front lines are blue-haired liberal women, and they are the most unhappy people. So, what do you think? My question was, what do you think the more traditional women understand? That what do they get that the women on the front lines are not understanding? That what do you think is the
Why are
why
they
are they
so
so
unhappy?
unhappy? Why are they so unhappy? And why are the more traditional women who don't mind being? It's kind of hard to talk about this without making it sound like they're just like they're just home, just not doing anything. But what do you think that? What do you think they don't get? Like, why are those women, blue haired women, unhappy, and why are the more traditional women living thriveful, thriving lives and are like what is the
Since it's rooted in the fact that they understand female nature, and then it comes down to their value systems. So a lot of times you'll see tradition is exactly what the name implies. It's tradition. It's taught. It stems from them actually observing and being raised in a house where they had a nuclear family, where they had a father, where they got to see their mother, do wifely duties, cook, clean, the norms that we associate with being traditional. They got to see that, and they got to see the benefits, and a family coexist in a healthy way, in a healthy manner, and it
Yeah.
yeah
ultimately ended up with them wanting that. And where they get unhappy is the traditional women. They understand what it took in order to be happy in a family dynamic, what to focus on and what to value, and so they're more prepared on the dating scene to go out and actually find that. Whereas you have the feminist mindset who they're indoctrinated with these independent values, and you don't need a man and you don't have to rely on a man for these things, and they essentially have an unhealthy perception of a healthy relationship. Give and take, compromise, being able to cooperate with a man, being able to collaborate. They don't have the fundamental understanding of how this is beneficial to them, and what makes it difficult is they still desire what traditional women desire, such as lifelong partners. They still desire marriage, but because of their attitudes and because of their mentalities and their value sets, they can obtain the same type of man or the same success in a relationship that the traditional woman can. And that's where the disconnect comes. That's where the unhappiness comes. They're taught to
Yeah.
yeah
chase their careers and fulfill, these feminist duties that they have been taught that they're obligated to fulfill in order to make themselves feel better and more, bigger, more significant contributors to society. And then when they don't get the love aspect, they don't get the family aspect, then they become unhappy, because I'm a firm believer in a woman's role is to be the side of a husband, the side of a man. As we've seen throughout history, a woman's status corresponds to her man. Let's face it. Let's be brutally honest. The world doesn't respect women the way the world respects men, because men have created a lot more than women have. Men have built society up, and women have been the nurturers, the caregivers, the emotional providers. They haven't
Yeah.
been, in essence, what men have been in terms of creating a community, building up a community, helping communities develop, maintain, and sustain, optimal ways of transportation, technology, creating new ways, new innovations, medicine, these things. So what it comes down to, like I said, back to the first thesis, is essentially the traditional woman understands what she needs to do in order to live a healthy life, and the feminist understands that her approach, she believes that her approach will ultimately end up in the same happiness and relationship longevity and satisfaction that the traditional woman understands will benefit from the way she perceives the world or what she has learned. But the difference is men still have to choose their mates as well. So when you take feminists and you incorporate this feminist ideology, these feminist values, these feminist behaviors, these mindsets, men don't want that. They want the traditional woman. So feminists look at traditional women as, why can they get what I want by doing what I despise, but I'm
Hmm.
doing what society has told me or taught me to do, and I still can't obtain that happiness and that family structure and that man in which I seek.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with the word despise. And I'm gonna get a little Freudian here. So I wanna know your opinion about this. I can't help but think of, there was a Jordan Peterson video. I'm gonna talk about that later. I can't help but think of like this weird, tell me if I have this right, with the psyche of the like radical feminists who who post all the right posts. They have the right colored hair. They do everything like the most radical person you can think of. I'm really trying to understand why that person got there. And something that I see the right and the more conservatives do, they really straw man people those positions like that. And I do it myself as well, but part of me that wants to understand why that person thinks that way is maybe because I'm more high in openness, I'm high in I guess creativity, I'm interested in people. I have a lot of feminine traits, so maybe that is what draws me to want to really understand how that person got there, because we like to think that those people aren't like human. We like to think that those people who are in the streets and they have those picket signs, like we like to think that they're like like NPCs. Like we like to think that they're not people. Like that is an actual person who believes what they're saying. Like they actually think that there is a evil, masculine, patriarchal demon that is suppressing the livelihood and the well-being of women. They actually believe in that. How can that not entice you to want to know, like, why does that not interest, like, how could that not interest someone? So anyway, that's when I get that to the point. I have a theory of how they get there. And I think, and you hit on it, they didn't see that dynamic, that masculine feminine dynamic growing up.
How
And
complimentary.
I think a lot of those feminists, and I'm probably gonna get attacked for this, and I think it's particularly with a lot of black women. I'm gonna that's like a third. I'm setting up so many questions for you right now. That's like a third question, but it's particularly with black women. There's this weird animus towards men, and it is it's pathological beyond conception. It's just weird animus towards, and that I think it's disgust. Really, I think it's the animus towards men in the everything that is masculine, like the whole entire just column of masculinity. There's a weird animus towards it, and I think what gives birth to the disgust response is seeing and they have an animus towards men and they have a disgust with femininity. So that's like a double decker sandwich of just radical ideology packed in one. They despise everything about manlyhood. They just like power, logic, all the things that is of masculine nature, and they discuss their own, they have like this weird disgust of their own nature. So the nature of being a nurturer. Jung talked about what, and this is not really Jung's idea. This is ancient Egyptian mythology as well. The the sign of night, like night is feminine, the light is masculine. There's a there's a graph in Maps of Meaning. I don't know if you read that book by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, yeah,
Laying
I've
out
heard of it.
he was laying out it wasn't his idea, and that these feminists attacked him for because they thought that Jordan was saying that the light and sun, SOL, soul. They thought that he was saying that the light was masculine, and that the night and the nurturing spirit was feminine. They thought that he was saying that, and that just shows you, the IQ that people are dealing with there. But that's another topic. But they have a disgust with the nurturing in the I guess you want to say softness of a they have like a disgust with that. And I think that, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think that is developed from, I don't think it's an Oedipal complex, but I think it's derived from seeing their they have like a I think it comes from they have like a deadbeat dad who they've developed this repressed, this disgust that not disgust this that they've developed this despising of this absent masculine figure in their life. So that's where that despise comes from. And then they have a disgust of the femininity because they've seen how they have a unconscious disgust of how their mother handled that situation. So seeing their, because I've seen this a lot, and I've seen this in my own life. I've seen it with my friends. There's just some, and you've probably seen it as well. There's some
See it all the
deadbeat
time.
dad. His beard doesn't connect. He's never there. He might be able to utter like three or four syllable words here and there. He can probably put together a sentence if he has enough liquor in him. He was the most deadbeat. The only thing that makes him a person is that he has a heartbeat. Like that is it. He's just there. And then there's just this then there's the mother who doesn't know how to operate within that, and she gets lied to, she gets cheated on, she gets like just completely just destroyed emotionally, physically, and on all levels. And I think the kid sees that, and they despise the dad. So that's the shadow of them. They have a deep resentment of anything masculine. They hate the way that this person just comes in, they just take control. They have like this pathological formulation of what it is to be masculinity. So when they're a kid, when they can't even don't even have the cognitive ability to even understand it and to differentiate what this guy is like and what this guy is like. So every time I think in a relationship, or you made a video about women diagnosing men as narcissists, like every man is a narcissist, like every single one. It's not just this one, but everyone is. So they have a failure to differentiate between different appearances of what masculinity is, and then they build this disgust of femininity because they've seen their own mother possess the same traditional traits, and they see that those. So it's kind of like they're saying, well, being soft and being effeminate, where does that get me? It's kind of like they're saying that to themselves. What's your view on that?
I think I would say that that is that is a very significant factor. But I'll do you one better and say that I don't believe that that's the predominant factor. I believe the predominant factor, because we have to factor in the fact that how these single parent households became a thing was the Lyndon B. Johnson Act, when the government started going door to door and trying to figure out if fathers was in the home for
Yeah,
benefits.
welfare.
So what you have is you have women who started raising little girls, and you have to remember that women, we can't overlook the nature of women. Women can be extremely manipulative, and when I go out and I actually observe Black women interact with their children, and what you see, like from the TikTok videos that they catch to divorce court, you see these women have an animus towards the guys that they had babies with. And what you can only imagine if they're talking about that guy like that to other people, how do they talk about the father to their children? How do they talk about the father
Yeah.
of their kids to their kids? So a lot of the times when you observe these women, these black women interact, you'll see that they down talk the father. And then I, like me myself here in Philadelphia, I'm my guys, my group of guys, they're all fathers. They're all fathers and they all love being in their kids' lives. And
Yeah.
they'll come to me for advice about dealing with their baby moms and saying their baby moms are being difficult. I saw on TikTok where his dad went to pick up his child and the mother was like, see, your dad ain't shit. This, that, and the third. Just down talking the father to the child.
Yeah.
And what that does is, and we're taught to revere our black mothers. We're taught that our black mothers can do no wrong. So if she say that your father wasn't shit, guess what? Your father wasn't shit. And when you're talking to these little girls, they're telling them don't end up with a guy like your dad. But we have
Yeah.
to think about how flawed is the perception of the woman about the guy that she laid with. Is she just upset at something that he did? Now he may have cheated, but they aren't married because the single motherhood rate is through the roof. So he may have cheated, or she may have just kicked him out because her expectations may have been unrealistic. Her standards may have been unreasonable. She could be the problem very well. So when you have women who have these distorted perceptions of relationships, how to go about relationships, and they aren't able to maintain healthy relationships, romantic relationships with individuals either, then they instill that in their daughters, and their daughters take on that same value. So she says, you don't need a man because she didn't need the guy that got her pregnant. Perhaps she tried to track him. Perhaps
Yeah.
she felt some kind of way because, whatever the case may be. So what she does is teach her daughter to despise the black man,
Yeah.
despise
Yeah.
masculinity,
I think that's what it is.
and then they grow up and they're like, I don't need a man. I need to go to school. I'm not gonna let a man get over on me. And really, it's not the black girl talking; it's her mother talking through her. It's everything that her mother felt about her dad or her ex-boyfriend,
Yeah.
and it's coming out of the lips of her daughter. And then what you have is a cycle of this toxic mindset that despises femininity, that doesn't want to submit, that doesn't want to concede, that doesn't understand a healthy relationship because these women are being raised by single mothers who despise their fathers, even if their fathers tried to be in their lives. Because let's not forget that they do indeed keep their children from seeing the fathers. They use their children,
Yeah.
they use their children as
Yeah.
pawns. Yeah, black women do a lot of evil shit when it comes to dealing with black men. And it's easy for us to look at, okay, the black man may be a deadbeat or he may have did wrong, but that's why I talk about women and that's why I hold women accountable too, because what we've done is we automatically vilify the man when the woman's feelings are hurt. We think that the man did something wrong when a woman's perception and the way a woman perceives life can indeed be her own fault. The way she looks at things, her expectations, her standards, her morals, she can indeed be erroneous in her approach and her strategies to dating and essentially shoot herself in the foot when it comes to dealing with men. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. And I think that is a much more predominant factor simply because single motherhood and the nuclear black family was destroyed back in the 1960s. Before then, you didn't hear about this. So if you have single mothers raising these children, especially these young girls, because black women still outnumber black men, so most black babies born are going to be girls anyway. The majority are going to be girls. So when they're raising these black women and they're raising them to have this vitriol towards black men because they had vitriol towards their ex-boyfriend and they're telling them to be independent, go get a college degree, you don't need a man. They're teaching them how they're engaging in the most pernicious acts and just passing that down and instilling that in their daughters, and their daughters use that same approach when they're dating. So then they automatically see black men as the enemy. Don't ever let a man tell you this. Don't ever let a man do this to you. Because if you do this, they're the worst. Women give the worst relationship advice. And if you have a black
Yeah.
woman giving her daughter
That's quite
relationship
this. That's
advice,
quite this statement.
you have a black woman giving her daughter relationship advice, then she's basically fucked. That's
Oh my
that's
gosh.
as real as I can keep it. She's basically fucked from jump.
I hope this video makes it on on YouTube, man. Oh my God. You know, I hate to end that on laughter because, you know, there was nothing funny about anything you said.
No,
And
it's real. Yes.
what got me is that deep hatred, and you said it's coming through the child's mouth, and I couldn't agree more with that. And you see that. I mean, this is not just with black women. This is just with people. This is with people. This is a phenomena that happens just with everyone when they have a. It can even be with a friend. If they have someone who has a deep hatred, a deep resentment of something, they're going to project that, and they're going to say kind of like what you said, like don't ever let a man do this, don't ever let a man do that. And it's weird because they're using. I think Carl Rogers talked about this with listening with listening to people and talking with people. And there was a video. This was from Jordan's free speech video. So this is basically the Rogerian way of speaking with someone. It's actually one of Jordan's rules in his first book, 12 Rules for Life. Assume the other person knows something that you don't. So that's kind of like the axiom of Rogerian talking, Rogerian dialect when you're in a clinical atmosphere. But a second factor to that is to when you're listening to someone and when they talk to you, your job is to, and this is like the complete opposite what people do when they're having a conversation, is you have to actually listen, get rid of. This is the opposite of how people listen to one another. Usually in a common setting, when I'm talking to you, let's say if we don't know each other, especially in a dynamic between a man and a woman, when probably that woman's trying to, or the man is most likely trying to get that person's number, or probably, you know, sleep with her, or who knows what his motivation is. But you have to kind of strip your preconception of that person. You have to kind of strip what your image of that person is and filter that out and get. It's kind of like an empiricism, I guess you could say, but there really is no raw empirical way you can actually get like the actual essence of who Q is. But it's a mechanism to make yourself aware of your preconceived notions and throw those away and then listen
It's
to
it's just openness.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
listen
It's
to
listen
just
to
what the
what the
openness.
person
first.
Yep.
listen to what the person is saying. And when they, especially in an argument, if they say something, and usually the person is really inarticulate, your job is to repeat back to them what they said, but to say it even better than how they said it. So you're formulating their argument for them.
Mhm.
And
And
that's
that's the
opposite
opposite
of
of
how
how.
most arguments and debates go, because usually if you say something, I'm waiting. I'm not even really listening to what you're saying. I'm this is what, you know, Jordan worded this perfectly. He said you're using the person as an a priori instrumental means to a you already have a predetermined or have a predetermined cutout of what you are. So when you speak, when you talk, when you do things, already have an a priori description of what you are, and I'm just waiting until you stop talking to say something. That's how most conversations go. And I think if you
Like you listen
yeah,
to respond. Yep.
treating the person as an instrumental a priori means to a predetermined whatever already made you in my mind. So I'm not really listening to you. I think if people can adopt this Rogerian way of thinking, I think if people can divorce their old way of how they speak to people one another, especially in a male and female setting. I say all this to say is because I think what causes a lot of confusion, a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of miscommunication is that I don't think we're really listening to one another. And I think when so if we're talking right now, a feminist is not listening to Kyle Maxwell and Jaquan Davis speak. She's listening to figments of her own imagination. This is more than just women. This is with anyone who is ideologically possessed. They already have a predetermined figure of what we are. And so anything that we're saying doesn't even matter what we're saying. Just the fact that you and I are here and we're talking, they already have they don't even have to listen to the conversation. They already know what we said. They know what we think. They think they know what we think. They think they know what we said. But what they're doing is they're applying their own figment of their imagination on top of our conversation, so they're not going to listen. And I think if that's a big mistake. And I think a lot of people in relationships, I'm no relationship coach, that's you. But I think a lot of people, they do that in those settings. So I just want to know your opinion on what do you think that does that resonate with you? How people,
Oh
whether
yeah,
man or women, they have like they're not really listening to the other person. They're kind of just they have a cut out predetermined figure of what that person is, and so whatever that person says, whatever they do, it just doesn't even matter. They're just going to ignore it. They're going to belittle it or do whatever they want with it. They already have in their mind what that person is and what they're doing. I think it's a big mistake. We do that a lot. We do it with the opposite political spectrum. We do that with people. We do it with the blue-haired people. Like, we're not really listening to what they're saying. I think everyone does that to a certain degree.
yeah, we do that. We do that in general when it comes to having conversations. Just in general, and in romantic relationships, typically what conflict comes down to is there's an issue, and that the woman or the man, when they're communicating that issue, they're already triggered. So they want to communicate how you made them feel, and it essentially becomes an attack.
Yeah.
So so when they're attacking, if someone's attacking you, you don't care what they're saying. You're not going to listen because if they make you feel attacked, then your initial response is going to become defensive. So now no one's listening to each other. So now you're just attacking each other, and both of you are just on the defensive. And that's typically what simply happens in the context of romantic relationships. And you're absolutely right when it comes to typical conversations. We make judgments about people because we've evolved that way. I mean, that was a survival mechanism once
Yeah.
upon a time. We had to be able to identify what person looks dangerous and what person could potentially kill
Yeah.
us if it came.
Yeah, getting to know someone is that's a dangerous endeavor.
Yep.
It makes sense to just that's a whole other conversation. It makes sense to prejudice you because I'm like, if I'm gonna take the time and walk up to you and say, oh, hey, how are you doing? I don't know who you could have a gun, you could have a concealed weapon, you could have anything. You could be a sociopath, you could be I don't know what you are. It makes sense to paint you as a generic figure and just to go with whatever my conception is. It makes sense to do that.
And we're visible creatures, and we're visual creatures. So
Yeah.
visual cues is typically what relays the most messages about who we possibly are or what we possibly value. So if I see you have, a do rag on, or if I see you have tattoos, or if I see you, there are certain signals that let me know, okay, tread cautiously around this individual because this individual has the characteristics or the traits visually that I would associate with somebody that could be potentially dangerous or could potentially be a hazard. So it's a natural evolutionary response in that regard. But yes, so when it comes to listening, what was really interesting about that is another concept is the concept of sacred values in the social psychology. When we're presented with new information that contradicts what we already believe, our brain, the part of our brain that's responsible for logic and reason, is completely shut down. So we're not even open to receiving that information to begin with, especially if we already have that preconceived notion of who this person might be and what their values might be, and if their values are indeed the opposite of what we believe, then you don't want to hear it. You're like, this person is somebody, this is a feminist, or this is a conservative, or this is somebody who's a traditionalist, or this is a leftist radical, this is a radical leftist. I already know what they're thinking. I already know how they feel. I already know what their perceptions are. I already know what they value. So I don't need to hear it because and they're going to be dismissive right off gate. And know that you're right. That's how we approach conversations typically.
Yeah. And that ties back to the women and men, not women and men, the feminists, and I guess the otherist group, that kind of ties back to that, because it's like they're attacking they're attacking a straw man, a pathological image of what a man is. there are and not, that's not to say that some sociopath there are sociopathic men out there who are, and there's a lot of coaches as well who even, I mean, that's how they make a living. Literally, they give men advice on how to manipulate women and how to basically just be a sociopath, how to ignore their own conscience, how to lie, how to just deceive people, how to use. I mean, you see it on TikTok a lot. I mean, some people actually
Dark
make a
triad
living.
traits.
Yeah, make a living to
Narcissism.
grooming people to want to grooming people and grooming women to want to be attracted to those pathological traits. And it's a really sad thing to see. And the reason why I brought that up, because I think we're talking about women too much. I want to talk about I think what's even worse than the feminist movement. And me and my friend, we have like, so funny because my friend is so like politically incorrect. He doesn't know about, well, cause he don't pay attention to any of that stuff. We just, I mean, we know about this stuff, but it's like, he's not even in it. Like if you asked him what Roe v. Wade was, he doesn't even know what the hell that is. And that's a good thing. You should have some friends who are just completely clueless. Because again, that's boring talking about this stuff all the time. But anyway, we have been documenting, like, I think we can be the first two people, non-scientists, to get like a published paper about this. This is how deeply we've been documenting this. And that, obviously I say that as a joke, but this is how deep this analysis has been. There is a growing, and I mean, maybe I'm late to this, you're probably more hip than to me. There is this growing emergence of just weak men being paired with these extremely attractive women. We've been seeing this so many times, and it makes no sense to us.
Will and Jada.
Yeah, like there is like this. I want to know your opinion on this. What do you think is going? I want to know your opinion, then I'll tell you what me and my friends are. But what do you think is going on? Like, are we evolving backwards? Like, why do you think? And this is something that's really suddenly happened, because there used to be, and it runs contrary to, the women are attracted to the dark triad traits. The younger women, definitely, for sure, but they're not. It's like they're repelling that, and now they're like, what do you think is drawing these women to? I don't want to say simps, but essentially a simp. I mean, what do you think? What do you think is going on there? Because I've been seeing it everywhere.
You have to look at what's been transpiring over the past couple decades with feminism. The women are becoming more masculinized. So if we're masculinizing the women and the men are becoming more effeminate, then the dynamic has just simply inverted. You have women who are masculine getting with men who are more feminine, because masculinity and femininity still mesh perfectly. Now, what it is in order for a relationship to actually last, to have some longevity and some satisfaction, there has to be that masculine element and that feminine element. The feminine element has become some of the men, and the masculine element has become some of the women. So that's all it is. It just doesn't work out as long as it would be if the man was traditionally masculine and the woman was traditionally feminine. That's what's going on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so you're saying, I mean, yeah, so you're saying nothing's really changed. It's just the hosts of the two binding spirits have just simply just been inverted. And so that makes sense. And I mean, me and my friend, we came pretty much to the same realization that,
But I'll also add, though, as you can also see, though, the divorce rate is at an all-time high, with women initiating the majority of divorces. So as you can see, that dynamic doesn't sustain long term.
yeah, I mean that,
The dynamic lasts, it lasts better when the man is the masculine and the woman is the feminine element.
yeah, because we just been seeing this, and it's funny because we're both single, so we're kind of, so the conversations are like kind of, I guess you could say they're vented towards like a more like a resentment, like, man, how did he get her? Like, it's kind of like a kind of funny way. But we really started getting serious about this. We're like, wait, what the hell is really going on? And I seen this the other day, and I've been seeing this for a while. like there's I want to know your opinion on it too. There was like this couple, and we were at this amusement park, and there was this couple, and maybe this is nitpicking, maybe it isn't. Hold on, I just want to know your opinion. And there's just something about just that male like leadership has just been just completely just depleted. And I wonder if, because I have a philosophical and just a psychological bent mind, so I can't stop seeing this stuff everywhere. When I'm seeing this couple, I just wonder. I'm like, I wonder if he is purposely not taking lead, because if he thinks he does, then he will be held in contempt for patriarchal, or he doesn't want to look possessive of his girlfriend in public. I wonder if that's why he's doing that. I've seen this couple. This is just one anecdotal story, but I've seen it a lot actually. They were going everywhere together, everywhere they moved. If they went to the soda machine, went to this ride, they were holding hands. And she was the one who was dragging him around. I'm sure you've seen this everywhere. Like, oh baby, let's go here. And he's dragging his hand, and she's like, he is literally just like a pet at that point. Like, he's literally just like a toy. He's like not even a human being at that point. So I see that happen a lot. I'm just like, dude, like, where's your balls at, man? Like, I feel so sorry for him at this point. And this is what put the icing on the cake. I was walking from this one part in there, and I seen him. She was in a bathroom, and he was standing outside, like face, like the woman's bathroom door was like this close to his face, and he was sitting on his phone like this, waiting for her to come out. I'm like, that's weird. That is super, super weird. You are so self-conscious about yourself that you have to literally, when you're not with her, you don't even exist. It's like, dude, sit down, relax. What are you doing? And maybe I sound like a schizo right now. Maybe I'm looking into it too deep. But what I seen from that is this man is so self-conscious about himself right now that he will stop existing because she has to use the bathroom. It was so creepy. You have to just see it so you understand what I'm saying. But I see it. I'm seeing this everywhere. You've seen it with the will in to make a more modern example. You've seen it with the Will and Chris Rock. Like, that guy Will was laughing, and Jada was laughing at the joke initially. They were both laughing at it. But when he's seen her face, when he's seen that it wasn't really a face. It was more like he was looking into her soul, like, and Will thought as if he failed. It's like he's seen that, and then that just set off like a switch in his head, and then he had to go prove his
You just said,
he had to go prove his masculinity
yep.
to her
To her.
in the
He had to go
in the
prove
most
why
pathological way
he's
possible.
worthy.
Way possible.
Yeah, it's inverted. It's so backwards, and I can't help to just see this stuff everywhere and just wonder, like, how we got here and why it's going on. So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I would have to say that most of the time when you see men who do that, it's because they don't have very much experience with women. They don't have a whole bunch of options. And so they cling to that woman because they have nothing else to cling to.
Like, dude, let her pee in peace, dude. Like, what are you doing? It was so disturbing, man. Oh my god.
It's basically a man who hasn't. It's basically a man, and this is this is where the red pill concepts and that slippery slope we start to get into that. But they haven't. These are men who are so invested in these women because they don't have the experience, or they may not have been. They may have not been around the block when it comes to dealing with women to be hurt, to understand female nature, and to understand that it's okay to have some balls. It's okay to show that you have other things going on. It's okay to be invested in your career and your purpose. things that take your mind off of her and things that exude masculinity when you exhibit it in itself. So what they are is they essentially become pets because their life revolves around their woman's validation.
Yeah, the
Their
Yeah,
happy
life
wife,
revolves
happy
happy
life.
around
wife, happy
proving,
life.
yep, exactly. Their life revolves around proving to the woman why they deserve her love. And they're slaves to it. It's an asymmetrical commitment on the man's behalf, where the man is more invested in the woman than the woman is invested in the man.
Yeah,
And actually, the majority of relationships study showed that the majority of relationships ultimately fail when the woman is not as invested or emotionally attached to the man as the man is to the woman. So, in essence, the woman has to like the man more than the man likes the woman in order to optimize relationship satisfaction and longevity. But that's what they're doing. These men are so caught up in these women because they have no purpose, they have no identity of themselves, they haven't experienced heartbreak, they have no they have no testicular fortitude.
yeah,
And it becomes problematic in the long term. It's cute to women in the beginning, but then you end up like Will and Jada, because a woman will always cling to a man that she knows she can get over on because he provides that the resources and the feminine qualities that women are attracted to that they find in their girlfriends.
yeah,
That's why she was dragging him around by his arm. She's attracted to him physically, but emotionally she bullies him into doing whatever she wants,
yeah,
and he allows it. It's
yeah,
it's 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 that political correctness that women typically maintain relationships on, because you realize women rarely want to hurt each other's feelings. They rarely want to make each other feel some type of way when they're friends. They want to uplift one another. They want to make sure each other feels good. That's essentially what the boyfriend becomes. He becomes a girlfriend.
yeah.
And as I said, that's attractive to women long term, but it's not as sexually arousing or as enticing as the guy who doesn't do what she wants him to do, and the guy who can act like he can manage without her.
Do you think it's like
Do you think?
some type of like pathological version of like chivalry, like trying to prove yourself? If because if you think about it, there's a bird, it's called the bowerbird, and this bird literally will dance and build like this big extravagant nest to attract female birds, and then they'll mate in the nest. But literally, so we can trace this act of like kind of, I guess, performative validation seeking from women. You can trace that down to animal kingdom, and that's just with birds. I mean, this exists everywhere for a damn, my mind is going blank right now. For a long time, basically, that's the point. So, but with the whole concept of chivalry, I can't help but think of like medieval times in that mythology where the guy would go out and slay the dragon, and then or he would put on like armor and do something of masculine fortitude or whatever, and then that would attract the woman. But I can't help but think of like, so what do you think is going on right now? Would you consider that? Would you consider that chivalry, or like opening the door open for women? Is that, how do we tell the difference between simping and chivalry? How do we tell the difference between those two things?
Chivalry is understanding that the woman is the weaker sex, and you need to allow her to be like, you need to exude masculinity in the form of sharing resources and showing some altruism, being able to delegate and let her and show her that you care for her in other ways, and you'll be able to support her in her vulnerable stages. That's what chivalry basically is. It's understanding a woman's vulnerability and showing your masculinity by
Yeah.
providing some aspect of
So simping, yeah. So simping is the act of,
being a doormat with the hopes of that you'll get reproductive rights.
yes, yeah. So you could look at simping to to reaffirm your your submission to the feminine. I think
It's seeking her approval.
chivalry is
Chivalry is
to
to
reaffirm why she should be with you. Simping is why I want you. Is the act of showing why I want you. And chivalry is, I think, showing why you should be with me. So I think chivalry is I'm the prize. Simping is you're my prize. That makes sense.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, chivalry is, yeah. I think
It's like
that's
this
a
is
like
why
pretty,
this is
it's a
why
this is
pretty,
you
why you should be with me. I think simping is this is why I want you. It's like it's a dramatization of why I want you, and that I think that's what Will did, because that's not chivalry. Like that is like self-flagellation. You were just embarrassing yourself. Because this is like a cool dynamic because they look the same way. It's kind of like if it's kind of like if you're driving like a really like fancy car and you see like a attractive woman go by and like you kind of like you rev up the engine a little bit or you do something do something show offy. It's like are you what's the difference between that and a guy who meets up with this woman and he tries to buy her everything and he tries to buy her this and get her that and he's always asking what she wants like what like how do you tell the
chivalry.
what's
Chivalry
the
is
difference between
essentially
those two things I want to dive into that that's
chivalry.
interesting.
Chivalry is essentially a man with manners. You know, because women don't like complete assholes and jerks. They don't like guys who just completely like are sociopathic or who have absolutely no capacity or give the perception that they
Yeah.
have no capacity to feel whatsoever. So chivalry is acknowledging her existence while still exuding masculinity.
Yeah.
It's showing that you have manners, it's showing that you have class, it's showing that you have virtue, it's showing that you have integrity. That's what chivalry is. It's just a man with manners. Simping is God, I gotta have you. What do I have to do?
Yeah.
Just tell me whatever I gotta do to
Yeah.
have you, and I will do it.
It's like a
Like
sacrifice.
that's what it is. Yeah, it's completely compromising your masculinity at the expense of hoping that she will select you sexually.
Damn. That's really interesting to really think about because they look the same way and it's not really easy to tell to differentiate why those two things are different. Wow. Did we touch on anything? I wanted to talk about something. Yeah, we just did that. Yeah, though. Oh, I guess we're in here. Um, so we talked about the differences between men and women. Feminism, why men are starting to simp. Like, what's the answer here? Like, where do we go from here? How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this mess?
I'm a realist. So I essentially don't think that there's no solution other than the fact that the men it's sexual selection in a sense because we have to remember. I mean, Darwinianism. There's survival of the fittest, and then there's sexual selection. And I think it's sexual selection. The majority of men are simps because the majority of men do not know how to get women. So what we're taught and what we're indoctrinated with and what is perpetuated through the media, what we constantly see propagated is that men have to be sensitive. Men have to show feminine traits. Men have to basically pedestalize the woman in order to gain her affection, in
Yeah,
order to gain her love. And since men have no idea how to do it and they don't know that masculinity is what actually attracts women, the men who are not exposed to that will continue to simp. And there'll always be more men who will
yeah.
simp
You're just gonna
because
reproduce
it's a lot
more and more
harder.
of them.
It's a lot harder for them to get sex from women or get arouse a woman sexually or even attract women in general. So that element will always be there. That's why masculine men are so highly desired because they're so rare. A masculine man is rare when relative to a woman and relative to what the typical mentality of the modern man is. So the modern man will always approach a woman that way as long as we continue to expose them to Disney movies and these narratives about, you have to be sensitive. You have to be like one of my favorite shows used to be Johnny Bravo. I don't know if you're
Oh
familiar
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah, man. That was a
Johnny Bravo. Johnny Bravo was narcissistic. He had muscles. He was
the
Giga
epitome
Chad.
of it.
Yeah, he was the epitome of Giga Chad, and they showed it to where women didn't like that. When women rejected him constantly, when in reality he would be the man who gets the women. And then there was the episode where this old guy was talking to women, and he would get them to respond. And Johnny Bravo said, "Man, how do you get them to do that?" And he just started singing a song about sensitivity, sensitivity, sensitivity. But you see how that's put in the media,
Disturbing,
in the
man.
mainstream media, to tell men that you get women by being sensitive. No, you keep women by being sensitive. You get women aroused by being masculine, because essentially that's the difference between a friend and a mate. The fact that you mate. So you want to be. There's a certain degree of femininity or feminine traits that you want to express when you have her in order to keep her. But you don't want to approach her, and you don't want her to think that you're a super sensitive feminine guy, because at the end of the day, those evolutionary adaptations she has that wants a man to be able to protect and provide correspond to masculine traits. So she's always going to be sexually aroused by that and look for that masculinity. And we have taught men that we need to be absent of that masculinity in order to attract women, when in reality their nature at its visceral level is to be attracted to that masculinity.
Yup, man. Amen. That's a good that's a good place to end, man. I appreciate this. This conversation is really important because like you said, there's a big wave of simps on the way, and I don't know how old are you?
I'm 29.
29. Oh man, I'm 24. Like I I pray for this next generation. I just don't know where we're gonna end up, and we're gonna be too old one day. We're gonna be old, and this all that's gonna be left is the feminine soy boys. I'm not too sure, where the hell we're gonna go from there, but I think
I
if we
think
if we
history
keep
repeats
having these,
itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is,
Are we in
if
hard times right now, or are we in which one? Which
Which
quadrant are we
quadrant?
in?
we're in a transition. We're in a transition between soft men and hard times.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is, the more scarce masculine men become, the more they're going to rise up and regain control. And the women who are rejecting all these steps are going to mate with these men, and these sets are going to be the ones taking care of the kids, but the traits and the values of masculinity will still be instilled in the kids through genetics. And essentially, it's just going to be a cycle. I think the women are going to continue to gravitate towards the top percentage, the top percentile of masculine men. And the masculine men, we look at it, we see it now with Future, we see it with Nick Cannon, we see all these guys impregnating all these different women, and giving birth to essentially men who are going to keep the same system of values, the same set of values going on when they meet. And as I said, that's the one funny thing about politics. Politics can try to correct nature in ways that it actually won't. And that's why it's funny. Because at the end of the day, nature will win. Nature always wins.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, keep doing everything you're doing, and your message is it's not sugar coated, but I mean it's grounded in facts. It's grounded in reality. So I commend you. You're doing you you get hit a lot. I see it. It's not easy, but you're speaking the truth, and you're giving people what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear. So man, all the success to you.
Thank you. You as well. You as well.
Thank you,
I
man.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, man, we gotta do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, brother.